Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
Hey, fans of freedom and open discussion, I'm heading over to Substack, and there's an ad-free audio and video version of The Adam Carolla Show that's going to be waiting there. In the near future, you'll even be able to watch ACS Live, unedited, as we record it, participate in the show via live chat. That'll be coming up very soon. You'll also get an ad-free version of the Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew Show. You'll also get an exclusive to my new podcast, Beat It Out, where I share unpolished ideas with my comedian buddies. The first series of episodes is going to be Jay Moore. You'll get all this and more for the low, low price of $9 a month, a pittance for all we're going to bring you. Subscribe now at adamcarolla.com/Substack, and I'll see all of you in our new speakeasy called Substack.
I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. Welcome back to the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. I'm your host, Alice, and I'm joined, as always, by my outraged co-host, Brett. I tried to go with outraged and outrageous.
And outrageous? Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Well, hey, that's me. You know, I'm always fired up about something.
You might as well be. You know, it's kind of like, I do believe that, you know, dogs don't bark at parked cars. But also, in this day and age, I feel like everything's a moving car and there's someone barking at something, and there's so much outrage that sometimes it's a little hard to know what to be outraged about and what is actually a nothing burger. And that's why we're the Cold Water Prosecutors. We are here to help you suss out what you should be outraged about.
And I gotta say, the more outrageous the case, the more easily it is to generate outrage that you shouldn't have. We saw this in the Delphi case. We saw it in the Karen Reed case. We saw it in the Brian Kohberger case. And we are going to see it in the Aaron Spencer case as well.
Which is an outrageous case. Let me just be very clear about that. But to show you that we truly are coming from a place of trying to educate you on your rights and the judicial system, it's an outrageous case with some outrageous things happening in it. But we're going to talk about one of the things today that might not actually be that outrageous, that the rest of those following the case are losing their minds about. And that would be voir dire.
Oh, yay!
Voir dire. Or if you're in Texas, voir dire. I've asked you this before. In Alabama, is it voir dire?
Voir dire. Oh, it's definitely voir dire.
Okay, so Texas is definitely voir dire.
And that's the thing. You got to figure out how they say it in your jurisdiction. Because if you don't, because I'm sure there are people out there making fun of us, like, call it voir dire. You come down to Alabama and you put on some fancy French accent, the judge is going to laugh you out of the courtroom.
True.
So.
In fact, they'll say, do you mean voir dire, Mr. Brett?
Voir dire? Yeah.
So we've talked about voir dire.
See, now I don't know.
Now I'm confused.
Now I'm confused. Right. Exactly.
Okay. If you go to law school, not in Alabama or Texas, it's voir dire. So we don't want to lead you astray if you're like actually practicing somewhere else. So if you fancy, it's called voir dire.
But if you're in the South or the Midwest, probably Texas, what do we call that? The deep west? What do we call Texas? What is Texas?
Texas Texas is just
fine.
Texas.
What is Oklahoma? Is that the Midwest? I think the Midwest is like Ohio, right?
It's called the Panhandle of Texas.
Oh God, a lot of people mad now.
Sorry, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Sorry, Oklahoma. I go, no, that's
What
all.
about New Mexico? What is New Mexico?
West.
That's just the West?
It's just, I mean, when I lived in Texas, we would just call that the West.
That's the West.
And Oklahoma would just be like north of Dallas.
I'm right that the Midwest is like
Ohio,
Indiana.
Yeah.
all those
Absolutely. The
places.
Midwest
Okay.
is different than
Minnesota.
Oklahoma. But Texas, we wouldn't call ourselves the South. We would just be Texas. Pat me up here, Texans. That's what we did growing up. It was just Texas.
Anyway.
Anyways.
We're not even in Texas
We're not even in
We're in
Texas.
Arkansas, which they probably also say it's Vordire.
They probably.
I think listening to the West Memphis 3, some of the hearings there, I'm pretty sure they did call it Vordire. So.
Voir dire. Okay, guys,
Voir
so what
dire.
is voir dire? We've talked about voir dire and voir dire before. It is, of course, the questioning of the jury panel in order to pick the jury. So you start with the jury pool. You know, when you get those letters in the mail that say, you must report for jury duty on this date or you will be held in contempt of court. Those are serious, by the way. You should not ignore those. And you should update. Ooh, I should probably update my my jury.
You're going to get
Yikes.
called jury duty.
This is like mens rea right here.
Somebody just sent us an email or did a review. I know we normally do the review questions at the end, but since you mentioned it, saying they got a jury summons and wanted to know what to do to get on the jury. The answer
What to do
is
to get on the jury?
Yeah. There's no good answer to that.
As blasé as possible, because as we always say, you don't pick a jury, you pick who's not on the jury.
Who's not on the jury, exactly.
Because truly, both sides have what we call strikes, where you can strike them for different reasons, for no reason at all, or for a specific reason, for cause. And each side is trying to strike who they think is really bad for them, and if they're really bad for them, it means they're really good for the other side. So you're not picking a jury, you are picking who's not on the jury.
What might be bad for you is if they have a question about what podcast you listen to and you put the prosecutors on it, the defense may not like that.
Don't put that. Maybe balance it out with like another defense case, or just don't say you listen to any podcast, because I will say you can't lie. Don't listen to me.
Don't listen to Alice. You have to answer the question truthfully. But if it doesn't mention podcast, don't volunteer it. How about that?
Correct.
Because a lot of times they're so old, it'll be like, what talk radio do you listen to or something like that.
They do say that. My favorite. So in every jurisdiction, you like fill out this questionnaire. So you get questioned. The voir dire is the actual questioning in court, whether by the judge or by the attorneys. But beforehand, a lot of jurisdictions will also have you fill out a questionnaire that is anonymized, and you put down like background information to kind of try and see if there's any conflicts that arise, like where do you work? You know, what do you listen to? My favorite on our questionnaire, Brett, is always, what bumper stickers do you have on your car? That's not in every jurisdiction. The laughs we'd get out of that, man. Some of them, because it'd be like, physics teacher at the local high school for 35 years. And it was like, shouty got, and then, you know, ASS or something like that. And you're like, really? Wow. All right.
My favorite was, do you own a PDA? Which, has anyone owned a PDA since like 2002?
Definitely not. Personal, what does it even stand for? Personal device.
Data assistant or something?
Yeah.
Personal.
I forgot what a PDA even stands for, but they don't get updated real fast. Anyways, of course, we are talking about voir dire in the context of the Aaron Spencer case, which is an outrageous case.
It is.
So Aaron Spencer is a 37-year-old Arkansas father. He's an Army vet. He's a farmer from Lonoke County. Is it Lonoke?
Who knows?
I'm sorry, Arkansas. I actually go to Arkansas a good bit for work, so I apologize for saying this wrong because I love Arkansas. It's beautiful. Upstanding citizen, right? We have this Army vet, farmer, salt of the earth kind of guy. But obviously we're talking about him. Why is that? Well, he gained national attention after being charged with murder in a highly controversial case. On October 8th, 2024, Spencer shot and killed 67-year-old Michael Fossler after finding him in a truck with his 14-year-old daughter late at night. So it's not just some old guy in a truck with his 14-year-old daughter. Like you might think, wow, that's a bit rash there, Mr. Spencer.
Let me just say this. Alice is giving this guy way too much credit. If you're 67 years old and you're in a truck with a 14-year-old, you deserve to get shot. Okay? Like, if I was the defense attorney, I would just stand and be like, ladies and gentlemen, jury, 67-year-old in a truck with a 14-year-old, my client shot him. Nothing else. Y'all.
No.
I'll see y'all at the closing.
A good prosecution person because you're the defense here, he's been charged, would say he was just taking him home from practice. Or I'm just saying, those of you with inquiring minds may be thinking, what caused this, right? 67-year-old man, maybe he's a nice grandpa. Maybe he couldn't drive very well. 14-year-old was being his seeing eyes. None of this is true. Obviously, you're about to find out why he was shot.
And so Fossler had been charged previous to this with more than 40 sexual offense counts involving this young lady, Spencer's daughter, including allegations of stalking, sexual assault, and child pornography, and was out on bond. He did have a no contact order, like those matter. And if you're wondering, why is this case being prosecuted? We know some people in Arkansas. Here's the story. So basically, the prosecution screwed this up with he shouldn't have been out on bond. They did a terrible job dealing with it. The judge didn't fix it. So rather than just keeping this guy behind bars, they let him out. So he's walking free. This ends up happening where this father ends up shooting him. And now the DA is like scrambling to cover himself. And that's why this case is being charged. So by the way, if you live in Lonoke, I think is how we decided to pronounce it, Lonoke, in Arkansas, just know that this DA needs to be removed from office, and you need to do everything you can to remove him from office. And that's my take on this before even getting further. But basically, this guy who had already sexually abused this girl,
40 counts, y'all, 40 counts,
probably had groomed her, got her in the truck again. Dad, like a hero, is chasing him down the road, eventually forces him off the road. There's a confrontation, there's an altercation, and he shoots him. And the one place where I am disappointed in Spencer is he fired 16 shots at him. He only hit him 15 times. I wish he'd hit him one more, but he missed one. 15 out of 16 ain't bad, and the guy died at the scene. Spencer called 911 and said, I just shot and killed him. He took my daughter, we got in a fight, I had no choice. And so you would think it would end there, but like I said, we got some CYA going on from a DA who needs to be thrown out of office, and those of you in Arkansas need to take care of that when you get the opportunity.
So usually, this is where Brett and I split viewpoints. Usually, I am not for mob rule, justice by the people. But here, the justice system was failing Spencer and his daughter, right? I mean, what more could you ask for? This guy's been arrested, charged with 40 counts of like the most serious child pornography and child sexual assault crimes. And yet he's out walking, and he's not just out walking. He's not like minding his own business. He comes back for her. What do you think he's going to do? 40 counts is all they slapped him with. I'm sure there were many more counts. He was back to do the same thing to his daughter.
And if you want to know, and for those of you who think we're all always on the prosecution side, I hope you're listening to this. If you want to know how absurd this prosecution is, one of the pieces of evidence the prosecution is fighting to get in are literally the comments that this father made to the police when he found out this man had been sexually abusing his daughter. And he said things like, I want to kill him. If I get my hands on it, I'm going to kill him, which of course he said that. And that is utterly irrelevant to what happened here, because he didn't just hunt him down and shoot him in his home. He had to chase down his vehicle that his daughter was in. And like this, if you can tell, I don't know if you can tell, this just whole case enrages me. It like, even working on the outline, I was just so angry the whole time. The fact that we are doing this is absurd. The fact that we're actually going to have a trial, which is what looks like is going to happen in this case, just makes me angry, because it is the job of prosecutors in this country to make sure that people like this do not have to go through a trial. This is a case where a prosecutor should have made the sound decision not to charge. But instead, he's going to have to go through this. He's going to have to hire a lawyer. And look, you never know with juries, right? I mean, you never know. He may well be convicted. I mean, if he is, I hope there's a lot of political pressure to pardon him immediately, but we're not to that yet. We haven't even started the trial. But this should make you angry if you're listening to this.
And let me just be clear. I would go to trial too. I'm not going to plead guilty to anything here. Yes. Are you kidding me? I'm not guilty. If I'm the defendant,
I'm going to trial.
Yeah, if I'm the defendant, I'm absolutely going to trial. And when I started looking at this case, I kept being like, what state is this in? Because those of us who live in Texas, we read these human interest stories all the time. This type of situation happens like at least once a year. And Texas does not prosecute, no matter what jurisdiction in Texas. I mean, I remember very clearly a case, I can't remember the jurisdiction, within the past couple of years, past 5 years at least, the father finds someone he hires to do yard work at their farm, sexually abusing his 5-year-old in the shed, and he kills him. And the police come and are like, yep, nothing to report here, and they leave. Absolutely. I mean, of course, they take the dead body away, but absolutely right there. And so this is a ridiculous prosecution. So Spencer, unlike if you were in Texas or just about anywhere else.
Or anywhere else in Arkansas.
Or anywhere in Arkansas. Really probably in no county in any other situation if they hadn't messed up with Fossler. Spencer's arrested. Shocker of shockers. And that's no sarcasm. Literally shocker of shockers. And he's the one charged with second-degree murder with a firearm enhancement.
Which also is overcharged.
Come on, firearm enhancement?
Can we just say that? And second-degree murder? This is at best manslaughter.
Yeah.
At best.
Heat of the moment. Right.
Yeah. So not only did they charge the guy, they overcharged him.
And you don't have to put the firearm enhancement in there. You can, because obviously he used a gun, but you do that in drug deals when you're trying to put the really bad kingpin away for a long time. That's just a cherry on top, but in the negative sense here. They did not need to do the firearm enhancement. This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance, fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it. So your dollar goes a long way.
Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Let's be honest. Buying cannabis shouldn't be complicated, sketchy, or low quality. That's why I want to tell you about Mood.com. That's MOOD.com. Mood ships federally legal cannabis straight to your door. No medical card, no hassle. And here's the kicker. The quality is better than anything you'll find at your local dispensary. Yeah, I said it. Whether you're into edibles, concentrates, flower, or just looking to explore, you'll find it all at Mood. And it's not just the variety that makes them stand out. Every product is sourced from small American-owned family farms that care deeply about what they grow. It's cannabis you can trust, delivered discreetly, and ready to elevate your mood. And because you're a listener, you get 20% off your first order. Just head to Mood.com, that's MOOD.com, to get started.
But an interesting note on this case, obviously we're getting fired up about this case. A lot of people are fired up about this case. The trial court imposes a gag order, but it doesn't stand because the Arkansas Supreme Court found that gag order unconstitutional. And so what we're about to talk about now is people in the defense camp who are talking about things happening in leading up to trial.
Let me just say, we've been critical of the Arkansas Supreme Court before. I loved seeing this because we need more of this. We need more of these gag orders being struck down. Gag orders are, in my view, the way they are applied, completely unconstitutional. Should have happened in Indiana in the Delphi case. Should have happened in Idaho in the Brian Koberger case. I'm glad to see this gag order being struck down. But I'm just going to tell you, we're going to cover this case if it ever goes to trial. It would take quite a presentation by the prosecution to change my perspective on this. Not going to say I'm going into this completely unbiased, right? You know, we're looking at a trial in February in this case, so we'll keep you abreast of this as it goes.
And just by the way, there are probably, we've said this before in our child trafficking cases, that there are for every one child exploitation case prosecuted, there are, not an exaggeration, thousands, if not tens of thousands of cases gone unprosecuted because there are not the resources. By trying this case, we are letting other sexual predators be out there doing exactly what Foster got killed for. So yes, I am incredibly annoyed because what a waste of resources, what injustice to this father who was doing, I think, what any father would do, any mother would do if a sexual abuser got out and was about to just do that. Where do you think they were going in the car? They weren't going to get some ice cream. Maybe they were go get some ice cream to lure her into, even more child pornography.
I will say this. Aaron Spencer is running for sheriff which I love.
Is he really?
In the county? He is.
Get it.
He has my complete and total endorsement.
Full endorsement.
So if you're listening,
did he register before or after this?
No. After this. He was like, this experience has convinced me we need a new sheriff.
Okay,
and
that's actually amazing.
And if he were a lawyer, he should run for DA, but he has to be acquitted because if he's convicted, if you're a felon, you can't actually run for office.
That would be amazing if he were the sheriff that the DA had to work with.
Oh, it'd be great. And then he could arrest the DA for something. He'd figure out something. So, anyways, but Alice is right. Very fired up about this case. But the thing is, when you're fired up about a case, it is so easy to fall victim to misinformation. And so we want to read to you something that was sent to us. It was posted in the gallery. It was sent to us by various people on email who were very concerned, who saw this, were very concerned because this is a case they care about deeply. So let me read it to you. This is what the post says. What just happened in the Spencer case should alarm anyone who believes in fair trials. So you've already got, and this is also just a good, when you're reading stuff like this, how do you know that what you're reading may not be completely factual and may be playing on your emotions? So something just happened and it's something so bad that it shouldn't just concern you about the Spencer case. Anyone who believes in fair trials. Think about the Richard Allen case. How often did you hear that framing in the Richard Allen? This isn't just bad for this is about the Constitution. Everyone should be worried about that, right? You see this a lot, and you see this in the beginning of this post. He goes on to say, the judge didn't just set some routine jury rules, which we're going to see in a second may not be true, but anyways, she created a system where the court handpicks the pool before the defense ever gets a real chance to shape it. Jurors are brought in 4 at a time. All bias challenges are handled quietly at sidebar. The judge alone decides who makes the first cut. Only after the court locks in 16 people does the defense get to strike anyone. That means the jury is filtered through the court before Aaron Spencer's lawyers ever touch it. So now we're building on this notion, which is accurate, that there are people in power in this county who are prosecuting this case for personal reasons, not because of justice. That is true. As I've said, the prosecutors in this case, I feel confident, have a bias here that has nothing to do with the actual facts of this case. And we're building on that to say not only is it them, but this judge is doing that as well. And the judge is trying to influence the jury and make sure that the jury who is picked will be against the defense.
So this post goes on to say, that means the jury is filtered through the court before Aaron Spencer's lawyers ever touch it. Then jurors are anonymized. No names, no way to identify conflicts, no way to spot connections in a small county where everyone knows everyone. And on top of that, the court reserves the right to shut down questioning whenever it wants. This is not how an even playing field looks. This case is about whether a father reasonably believed his child was in danger. The defense has already been blocked from explaining how grooming and manipulation actually work. Now, the jury itself is being tightly controlled by the same court that excluded that evidence. Fair trials require open voir dire, transparent juries, and real defense participation. And then basically saying, like, this is an abomination, right? This is going to affect all types of cases. This is horrible.
And look, I mean, some of the stuff, this notion that the defense won't even know who these people are, won't even be able to do research on them, won't even be able to determine whether or not they have some sort of bias. I mean, this sounds bad, right? The courts can just shut down questioning whenever they want. And, this notion that the court's already excluded some evidence. And I'll just talk about that briefly. So the question is, absolutely, actually, they get this right. The question is whether the father reasonably believed the child was in danger. So basically, as we've talked before in our self-defense cases, if you believe that you are in danger or someone else is in danger of serious harm or of death, you are able to take action up to and including lethal force against the person who is the source of that danger, right? So that's the question. At that moment in that car, could he believe that? I don't know how he couldn't have. I mean, and this has not been the allegation. If, let's say he wrecked the car and he got his daughter out and this dude was pinned underneath the car, right? And he just walked up to him and pointed his gun at his head and shot him 15 times and somehow missed once, right? Like right in the head. Okay. That would be your argument. Like, he might have been a danger before, but when he wrecked him, that was fine, right? That was a perfectly reasonable action. Wrecking the car to get his daughter was fine. But then he was pinned, he was neutralized, he was no longer a threat, and you murdered him, basically, right? You execute him. That would be sort of the argument. Now, that doesn't seem to be the argument. But so that's going to be the question. This question about grooming and manipulation is interesting, but you can see, I think, how it's not really relevant to that question. It doesn't actually matter how he got her in the car, right? Like, whether she got in the car willingly because she was groomed or whether he kidnapped her doesn't actually matter. The fact that he has her in the car is good enough to create the danger. And getting into this sort of ancillary discussion about how grooming works isn't necessary to the defense and could be confusing to the jury. So you can see why it would be excluded, right? But this person obviously is pro-defense and sees you ruled against us here. So therefore, this must show bias. You must be biased against us.
And the issue in this last paragraph is that it confuses all these different issues, right? What you're allowed to bring in, we've talked about what evidentiary things you can bring in. It's not the kitchen sink. That goes for both the prosecution and the defense. It's confusing that and saying that just because the judge doesn't rule for you in every single instance, there's some sort of bias. That is a very faulty way of thinking. We saw that a lot in Delphi. We see that in many types of cases. Whenever the judge goes against you in any sort of ruling, there's this tendency for those covering the case to say, see, the judge is never going to rule for the prosecution or the defense because they've made this one ruling. Each of these rulings the judge has to make has its own standard, and there's legal precedence that goes behind it, and there's different rules that govern that judge's decision. So these are all different lanes. We're talking apples and oranges here. Unless you're alleging that this judge is somehow like crooked, taking money from the prosecution or the defense or what have you, and just a completely unfit person to be on the bench, that's a different question then. What are the rules governing voir dire? What are the rules governing what is allowed evidentiarily in a trial? Those are from pretrial motions in limine. Those are very transparent. You can look up the standards for all of these things. And one of misunderstanding is how voir dire works in all cases and why it works that way.
So, fortunately, we don't just have this post. We also have the order. But before I get into the order, I just want to say one more thing about this case. If this prosecutor puts this 14-year-old on the stand and tries to get her to testify that she went with this dude willingly, that prosecutor should be tarred and feathered, disbarred, and driven out of the county. I mean, it's just, I can't even imagine. But I feel like they're going to do that. I mean, we'll see, but this case is an abomination. I mean, it is terrible. So we'll see what happens there. And if they do that, then I would re-raise that grooming stuff. Like if she gets up on the stand and says, oh no, we were just friends. He was so nice to me and he cared about me. And I went with him willingly because, we were in love or whatever they're going to have her say.
And here is the outrageous thing. I don't know how you charge this case without calling her.
I don't either.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why this is so outrageous. Talk about re-victimizing the victim here on so many levels. She's the only other one there. Even if they obviously shouldn't go into that, but there is not a world where I can see you can bring this prosecution without putting a 14-year-old on the stand. And there is a reason a lot of prosecutors end up pleading out child exploitation cases to spare the victim from having to get on the stand. And also because the evidence is usually so clear, which it is in this case. They have 40 counts on this guy and pictures that he's taken or made that are part of his other pending cases. Anyways, okay, we do have an order here. Let's read the order because we don't have to just take a post. And you should never just take someone's summary of especially court orders when they're available. So this court order is here for us. So we have the order governing voir dire. Ooh, not a great look that voir dire is misspelled though.
Oh yeah, it sure is, isn't it?
Maybe it's because they say voir dire. There you go. Okay. I just noting it for the judge your order, because you usually use these orders a lot, and this is relevant to our discussion here. It's usually a form order that you're going to use for all your cases. So you should know that the title of your order for voir dire is misspelled.
I was looking up the name of the prosecuting attorney. This is the deputy prosecuting attorney, John Huggins, and hopefully whenever you defeat the DA, you'll fire him. One of his arguments he makes is that he should have called 911 while he was chasing him down the road instead of shooting him. Like, are you serious? He should have called 911 when his daughter is being taken by a guy who is sexually assaulting her? And by the way, she's the number one witness against him. You know what 911's good for? Making sure the police find the body. That's what 911's good for. Like, that is absurd. That is ridiculous. I am so disappointed in these people. So disappointed in them, and they deserve all the hate they get for
all
this.
The ire.
So that's all I got to say.
This
Anyways,
is where, remember, we've gotten this question a lot. Have you ever had to charge a case that you felt the evidence wasn't beyond a reasonable doubt, or that you were told by your superiors you had to bring a case
before I charged this, and it wouldn't even be a hard decision.
That's my point here. Is no, because we have something called prosecutorial discretion, and every single attorney, not just your boss, if you're not the DA or the ultimate prosecuting authority there. The biggest responsibility, other than, following the rules of ethics and all that stuff and integrity, is to have prosecutorial discretion. Every single attorney has that. And both Brett and I have turned down cases before along these lines. I've definitely turned down cases where they totally did it, but it was like this type of situation. I obviously can't talk about the types of cases that we've turned down along these lines. And if anyone would have said, no, Alice, go charge the case, I'd be like, well, y'all have fun. I'm going to go do a podcast now for my living.
I hate to laugh in the middle of your...
no, laugh away.
Your rant. But someone pointed out they also misspelled Arkansas in this order.
Oh, my gosh. You know what? It just shows you what a farce is. Okay. I'm going to give you the top line here. I'm not going to... the bluff, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say later and not hide the ball here. This voir dire order is entered in probably every single case that this judge has, and probably in this district, and it probably looks like a voir dire order.
It spells Arkansas every time.
That's what I'm saying. And you know what? It's not a clerk. It's the judge and it's the courtroom deputy who's misspelling this repeatedly, which also probably means that this case has a bunch of misspellings in all of their case files because they're repeating and using the same form template every single time.
I realized recently that I had been filing reponse to a bunch of orders because I was using the same thing over and over again. And I was like, oh, shoot, it's not response.
It's okay. It's okay. We understand what you mean.
So that S back in there. But I don't misspell United States. So
Arkansas. Okay, I'm going to say it as it's said. Arkansas. So the state of Arkansas versus Aaron Spencer in the order governing voir dire procedure. Okay.
We're defending the order. Remember,
we're defending the order, but we're not going to defend the sloppiness of what's happening here. Okay, sorry. This is a complete tangent. It doesn't show crookedness or bias of the judge. It shows sloppiness is all I got to say. Okay, here's the order. It's hereby ordered that voir dire in the matter shall proceed as follows. 1. Prospective jurors shall be called and seated in panels of 4 jurors at a time. Each panel of 4 jurors shall be examined for purposes of voir dire, and any issues relating to juror hardship, bias, or disqualification may be raised by counsel.
So already, does that sound like what we read to you from the Post? That they're not going to be able to raise these issues, the judge is going to control the whole thing? No, it doesn't at all. It sounds like the counsel is going to be able to take these 4 jurors who are going to come in 4 at a time and address any issues that they have a concern with.
And if you think of the alternative, so depending what the practice is, because they could be calling a jury pool in order to seat multiple juries, depending on how many trials are happening in the courthouse. Let's say they call 50 or 60 people for the pool. That's not that uncommon, just depending on the jurisdiction. So instead of questioning all 60 people at one time, they're asking those questions 4 at a time, asking everybody, just instead of asking it 60 times in a row, which I actually think would be a lot harder for either the prosecution or the defense to raise any concerns, because I'd be like, what's happening? I've lost it. You're bringing in 4 at a time. So this is courtroom management. So third, challenges for cause shall be addressed at a sidebar outside the hearing of the remaining prospective jurors, unless otherwise directed by the court. Brett, what's a challenge for cause?
So basically, there are two types of challenge. And we talked about this, and we talked about when we didn't avoid our episode we did earlier. So you guys can check that out. So we have what are called preemptory strikes, right? And those are, you know what? This person just gives me a funny feeling, and I don't want them on my jury. Or they're an engineer, or they're a teacher, or they're a preacher, or they're, whatever it is, you don't like them. So we're going to strike them. And as long as you don't do it based on race or gender, it's fine, right? We haven't even gotten to those yet. This is actual bias. These are disqualifications as of right. So if someone is actually biased, so if someone comes in, for instance, and says, I hate the government, I don't trust the government, and you put me on a jury, I'm not guilty from the beginning, and I'm not going to listen to the evidence, and I don't care. Or if somebody comes in and says, look, if somebody is charged with something and they don't testify, guilty. Any innocent person would get up on that stand and testify. Somebody says something like that, you can challenge them for cause. You don't lose a strike. And the judge, assuming they agree with you that this is an accurate description of their bias, is supposed to strike that person and go ahead and send them home.
And whenever you have for cause, these are never raised before the whole panel. They're not even raised before the person who either side is alleging has the challenge for cause. The reason it's raised in a sidebar is because you have to decide whether it is in fact rises to the level of cause and whether that person can be rehabilitated. Imagine I come in and I say, I'm married to a cop, so whenever a cop testifies, I'm going to believe them 100% no matter what. That's just who I am. And so you can imagine the defense being like, well, sidebar, judge number 41 says that she's married to a cop and no matter what, she's going to trust whatever the cop says. They're not going to be able to follow the judge's instructions to follow the evidence here.
And exactly what's out. I want to point out one thing, because in the post, what Alice is describing was sort of a gloss was put on it that this is somehow unusual or this is shady or underhanded, that all this is happening at sidebar. But you have to remember, I mean, even though it's only 4 people, we're not trying to embarrass people who are coming in to do their civic duty. So we have these conversations in private.
And also, it's not like I haven't broken the law that I'm married to a law enforcement officer. You can imagine something a little more embarrassing. Like I put in there, my grandfather died in the Holocaust. So I have a real hatred of anyone who has a German sounding name, and the defendant has a German sounding name. I mean, that seems like a very reasonable reaction for someone to have, but it could have a real effect on the case. So we're not going to stand up and be like,
I was sexually assaulted.
Or I was sexually assaulted. We're not going to talk about that in front of all 4 panel members or even in front of you, right? We're not going to talk about you like you're a piece of meat. You are a human with dignity. And these biases, we always talk about them in these grand gestures, like someone stands up and says, I am a racist or I am a whatever. Sometimes it's stuff that's personal experience that is very, very deeply personal, like having been previously sexually assaulted, having been a victim of crime, because that's always a question you're asked. Have you been a victim of crime? You can imagine someone who's been a victim of crime to have certain beliefs that they hold so deeply because they are so personal to them that they can't look over in terms of being unbiased on a jury. So that's why it's a sidebar.
People are asking about parents. If you're a parent, is that enough to disqualify you? Well, here's how that would actually go. Say I'm the prosecution, and I'm like, Your Honor, I'm worried, I'm concerned that there'll be some parents in this panel, in the veneer, however you want to pronounce it. Pronounce another one that is pronounced different ways, different places. And
I wonder how this judge would spell it.
Who knows how they spell it? And I'm concerned that they might be biased. So I would like to ask that question. Who's a parent? Have them raise their numbers. I'm going to write down all their numbers because oftentimes everyone's given a number, right? We don't refer to them by their names, refer to them by their numbers. And then I want to call them forward and I just want to ask them like, hey, you said you're a parent. Just want to make sure. Is the fact that you're a parent going to prevent you from being able to decide this case fairly? Would you be able to convict a parent who killed someone who had abused their child, right? If that person says no, as a parent, if he killed somebody who abused his child, not guilty, and nothing would change that. That person's going to be struck for cause. If they say, look, I'm a parent, but I'll listen to the evidence and I'll decide based on the evidence, they're fine. The fact that they're a parent is not going to disqualify them, but it might be something that requires a little bit more conversation at sidebar.
Okay, so number 4, the court shall rule on all challenges for cause as they arise. This process shall continue until a total of 16 jurors who have not been excused for cause have been seated. Remember that post? The post said that the defense isn't going to have any say until the judge handpicks 16 jurors from which they can then pick. That's not what number 4 says. Those reasons for cause. I've been sexually assaulted. I can't overlook that. I'm married to a police officer. I will never question a police officer who testifies. All of those things. All of those are for cause reasons. They're addressed as they come up, one at a time. And if someone is struck for cause, they're no longer on that 16. They won't be part of the jury panel.
And the reason 16 is because we need 12 jurors and 4 alternates, right? So we're trying to get to 16 qualified jurors that everyone can agree on. So basically, we're working through these numbers. We're getting rid of everyone who's being struck by cause, and then we're going to get to the panel. So once 16 qualified jurors are seated, so we've gotten through, they're not biased, they don't have any of those reasons, those jurors shall be questioned collectively as permitted by the court. So we've gotten through all the bias issues, the things that would result in a strike for cause. At this point, the attorneys can ask any other questions they want to ask, anything else that might be important to them. What do you do for a job? I mean, here's one we often ask. Anybody ever served on a jury before? Oh, number 4, you served on a jury. What kind of jury? Was it a criminal or civil trial? Oh, criminal trial? What'd you end up doing in that? Oh, you found the guy guilty? Okay. We love this guy. We already found somebody guilty. He's good, right? Like, and the defense might be like, wow, he's already convicted somebody, you know? But that's not a bias thing. It's just a piece of information that is good to know about that person because you've got let's say you've got 6 strikes. So you can strike 6 jurors. So the way it works in the federal system is literally like, if you show up for federal jury duty and it's 1 through 100 and you're 99, you're not getting on the jury. Because it's exactly like this. You go through, you get rid of all the people who have bias, and then when you get to 16, that's going to be the jury, unless someone strikes. So you could say, you know what? We're good with the 16, not going to use any of our strikes. And then it goes to the other side, and they might say, yeah, we like them too. We're not going to use any of our strikes, and it's over. That's going to be the jury. Because now we're at that point where you can strike people.
And so, by the way, this is why a lot of you who get called for jury duty, who get that letter and then end up sitting in a waiting room for like 10 hours that day and never get called. That's why. It's because you're really low on the number. You're probably number 99 or something. And they filled up all the juries and they never got to you, but they had to hold you there in case they got to the 16 and they kept striking and they get to you. But the reason you sat there all day was not to waste your time. It's because you're so far down the list, they never get to you. That's
and I'll
the
say
reason.
This. The only time that Alice and I ever got through the whole jury was with the case we talked about before. It lasted a month. The fact that it was lasting a month meant there were a lot of people who had conflicts. They could not serve on that jury. And we struck that jury all day, which is really long in federal court, and got through every single one of them before we got a jury. And that's the only time that that's ever happened. Usually we're done by lunch and we got them and we're ready to go. It goes on. Preemptory challenges, strikes, shall not be exercised until the full panel of 16 qualified juries has been seated and voir dire questioning has concluded. At that time, counsel may exercise their preemptory strikes in accordance with law and procedure. So exactly what we said. You've got the 16 people. Now you can decide, do you want to strike any of them?
For any reason.
For any reason, as
Except
long as
for
it's
race.
not race or gender. Those are the only 2 reasons that you can't strike somebody because they're white or because they're black or because they're a man or because they're a woman. Anything other than that. Their religion, their profession, the way they looked at you, the way they cut their hair, like really any reason other than that.
And just so you know, the preemptory, truly listen to our other episode, but there is also gamesmanship, not in the negative sense, for you, because you have to look further down past that 16 and you're like, what would be number 17? Because what they do is they just move up in the line as you strike people. And so you're not just going by, I don't really like them. You're saying, man, I don't know. In their questionnaire, they said that they listened to like all of these CSI podcasts and shows. They're going to want all this DNA. This is a case without DNA. I feel like, I don't know for a fact, But I just feel like they're going to be really embedded in like all this type of evidence. And that's not the type of case that we have here. So I'm just going to go with my gut and strike that person. That's an example of a conversation like Brett and I would have of whether we wanted to use one of our peremptory strikes. Or we'll say, I don't know, she's a teacher, and that teacher usually gives the benefit of the doubt to, the delinquent. And I don't know if I feel great about this, but I also don't want who would be number 17 because I don't know enough about that person. So let's just take our chances here.
Like Alice and I, so we had one case, it's the long case, where the defendant was a football coach and who was an assistant principal. And one of the prospective jurors was a football coach who was an assistant principal. And the defense was falling all over themselves to have that guy on the jury. And we were like, if we exercise no other strikes, that guy's getting struck. You never know. Like, maybe he would actually be on our side. He'd be like, I can't believe all this stuff this guy who's just like me did. But the defense is thinking, he's just like our guy. He's going to be sympathetic towards him, right? And so that's the sort of thing. And people ask for, like, why do you strike engineers? Because no amount of proof is enough for an engineer. Like, they don't understand beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, they need it down to a scientific, mathematic principle. So that's why we strike engineers. Why do we strike preachers? Because they want to forgive everybody. They don't want to sit in judgment over anybody. They don't. So you might think, oh, fire and brimstone preacher. No, strike them. You don't want them. Teachers, same thing. They've been dealing with unruly students their whole lives. They are absolutely more inclined to give a second chance. So prosecutors, strike them. Defense attorneys, want them. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's a stereotype. It's a generalization. But that's what you do when you design juries. Okay, this next paragraph is really important because remember, back in the rant that we talked about earlier, what was one thing they said?
Oh, I see so many typos in this paragraph.
Well, you're right. So it's all anonymous. Like, how are we ever going to decide whether or not someone has a conflict, et cetera, et cetera? Now, here it is, in all caps, the paragraph about that. At no time will a juror's name be called. So at no time will a juror's name be called. It goes on to say, only the court and court staff, counsel and their staff, plus the circuit clerk shall know the names of the jurors. So counsel's going to know the names of the jurors. If counsel thinks the jurors have some sort of conflict, they can figure that out. They can look them up on Facebook.
We Google everybody.
Yeah. I mean, we've sat down and looked at every single person's Facebook page, right? And we found one who was in rodeos and did leather work and owned cattle. And we were like, we want this person. Because they just feel like a good juror for the prosecution. And we got her. She ended up on our jury. But anyways, it goes on. The jurors shall not divulge the name of fellow jurors. No other individual named herein shall divulge the name of a juror. Jurors will be identified by a number. So for the purpose of the public voir dire, we're going to refer to numbers. Nobody's going to use the names. The counsels will know the names. They can determine whether or not somebody has some sort of conflict or whatever. So that whole post was just completely wrong about this. The actual people who matter, the people who are going to be able to strike a juror or point out bias or point out some sort of connection, will absolutely know their names.
And that's how it's done, I think, in just about every jurisdiction. I don't know any jurisdiction that doesn't do this. Again, it's to protect the jurors. It's your civic duty. You are called there by contempt of court. And as we have seen with jurors who are picked in high profile cases, how they're hounded, and there's so much. You're being called for a duty. You're not volunteering for this. So you don't need to have your name splashed everywhere. So last thing in this order, the court retains discretion to conduct additional sidebar conferences, limit repetitive questioning if, in fact, counsel asks voir dire questions, and modify this procedure as necessary to ensure fairness, efficiency, and compliance with applicable law. So remember that post got really angry about the judge can just shut down questioning as it wants. Yes, technically, in number 8. But the purpose is not to shut down questioning. It's to ensure that there's efficient use of time. When you're questioning all these people, and you have one attorney who just keeps asking the same question. Well, are you able to convict? Do you really think you can convict? Have you ever seen these shows before? Do you think everything's glitzy? Oh, really? Well, wouldn't it make you be really, really, really sad if someone got convicted and had to go to prison? Well, do you think you could really do it? That's wasting everyone's time. It's not getting more to anything. So what this is saying is the court has the discretion to basically run its court room in order to ensure that the case moves forward. And there's not just a filibuster up there for voir dire.
And that's the end of the order. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, this is entirely standard. There is nothing about this that's unusual. Different jurisdictions do it a little differently. In some jurisdictions, the judge asks all the questions. In some jurisdictions, different judges do it differently. Some judges ask all the questions. Some judges like the attorneys to ask all the questions. It varies, but there's nothing at all unusual, weird, strange, concerning about this judge's order. It is very standard, very typical. I am a Spencer Stan, F-A-S. I'm a FAS, I guess. And there's no problem with this. This is perfectly fine. Maybe the judge is incredibly biased against Aaron Spencer. I don't know. But this order is not biased, and there's nothing about this that should concern you whatsoever. This is a standard order and will assuredly ensure that the jury is unbiased and is a jury that both the prosecution and the defense feel comfortable about. Okay. Alice, do you have anything else on Aaron Spencer?
The case is outrageous. We're really angry about it. But the voir dire is completely standard. So I hope that has come through. We're going to shoot you straight on these days. We'll tell you when to be outraged and when something is like, this is completely standard here.
So we're done with that. We're moving on to our next topic. We probably could do an entire episode on Greenland, but we're not going to do that. So people have written in after our war powers discussion and want to know about Greenland. So if somehow you've missed it, the administration in the United States is really keen on Greenland. And this is, those of you who don't follow obscure American history like I do, or who live in another country, may not know this, but the United States has had this weird obsession with Greenland for like 150 years, right? So you remember when we bought Alaska from the Russians? Well, guess what else we were interested in buying? Greenland. We just had this thing about icy lands at the time, right? And we've tried to buy Greenland multiple times. So Greenland is a protectorate of Denmark, I guess, and has been under Denmark's control for a long time. I have no idea why. When I think of and I feel bad, right? But I don't know why. I know a lot about history. I have no idea why Denmark and Greenland are attached to each other. Alice, do you happen to know?
I have no idea, but I do think this is very interesting. You do say Greenland, and someone else noticed. I say Greenland. Greenland.
Greenland.
Greenland. Look,
Greenland.
You're saying it phonetically. It is spelled Greenland.
It is a green.
All
land.
I know is that I was talking about this with my kids who are 8 and 6, and my 6-year-old was like, I hope we get Greenland. And I'm like, why? Why do you hope we get Greenland? And he's like, how do you not know? And I was like, pray tell.
Yes. What is it about Greenland?
What is it about Greenland that we are all so obsessed with? He goes, Mom, it's connected to the Arctic and there are polar bears there. And I was like, all right,
I
didn't know that. He just learned about polar bears at school. So apparently this is true.
I know that they named it Greenland because they wanted to encourage people to go there, even though it's not green.
And it was icy, whereas Iceland is actually very green.
Iceland's awesome.
No,
right?
Iceland is actually much greener than Greenland.
So one thing I do know, so back in World War II, right, as you may know, the Nazis took over Denmark, right? And the Nazis really wanted Greenland to be under their control. And so the Denmarkian government, who was under the control of the Germans at that time, basically ordered Greenland to be subservient to the Nazis. And the Greenlanders and the Danish, is that what they are? From Denmark? Danes? Are they Danes?
Aren't they? They're not
Sorry
the Danes.
if you're from Denmark and I'm getting it wrong. But the Danes who were there were like, F you guys, and signed a treaty with the United States. And the United States ended up using Greenland as basically like an unsinkable aircraft carrier to funnel supplies to Europe, because at the time, obviously, it's harder to make the full flight. And like all those people got charged with treason in Denmark because the Denmarkians were under the control of the Nazis. Anyway, so after the war, so Harry Truman is like, I don't want that to happen again. So he tried to buy Denmark. It didn't work out. We have a bunch of security treaties with them. Anyways, so recently, for reasons that are entirely unclear to me, we really want Greenland. Like, We want Greenland. And so we've been threatening to invade Greenland, buy Greenland, tariff until we get Greenland. And so the question is any of this legal, right? Because this is a legal podcast. I don't know, maybe you're with Alice's son and you think Greenland is absolutely necessary to the security of the United States. Maybe you think it's not. You can decide for yourself whether or not pursuing Greenland is in the United States' best interest. As a matter of law, this is one of those things that is like, we've talked about this before, that like bad facts make bad law. And, we talked about the war powers and we talked about how broad the war powers are and the president can do anything. And before I tell you my opinion on this, I want you to think about this. Like, given what we said about the war powers and when they can be used and how they're used and what the justifications are, do you think the United States could use military force to take over Greenland? Is that something that we could do sort of under the current law? So I'll let you consider that for a second, and then I will tell you sort of my position on this as a matter of law. No. No is the answer. So taking over Greenland, I want you to think about how different that would be from like Venezuela, right? So Venezuela, you have sort of a national security objective, a criminal prosecution objective. You have a short-term operation, and you pull all this off. You go in, you get the president, you bring him back. It's over. Venezuela moves on. You
have not invaded Venezuela.
You have not
invaded Even though you've
Venezuela.
Taken away the head of it, you did not move in with your forces and occupy like the emperor's throne now.
Exactly. So you haven't done that. Now, contrast this with what you'd have to do in Greenland, right? I mean, you would literally be taking over this territory, right? Now, Denmark says it's theirs. I don't know what the people of Greenland think about that. I think there are people in Greenland who want to be independent. There's people in Greenland who are happy with Denmark, whatever. Whatever the case, you would have to take it over. You would have to occupy it. It would become part of the United States, I guess, as like a territory. You really can't do that without Congress, right? Like, this is more than just the use of military force. You're not just attacking something and then being done. Like, you would be going in and taking this over. And obviously, the War Powers Act does not contemplate that because it has a time limit. The AUMF, the Authorization of Use of Military Force, doesn't complement that because this is really, I can't even think of a way to tie this into terrorism, right? So there's really no way, like, could the president, his commander-in-chief power, order the military to do this? I guess. I think there are probably some people in the military who would be a little skeptical, honestly, of that order because it's an offensive war, really. You're like going in to take over this land, and we really haven't done that since the 1800s. Like, that's like, it's not something we typically do anymore. Not to mention, obviously, the fact you have all these treaties with the Europeans and then the European Union and Denmark and all these other people. It's a really bad idea, sort of from a strategic alliance perspective, but just as a legal matter, it's hard to imagine how you could do this and it be legal.
I agree with you. But that's why this is not an entire legal brief.
It's not. Now, let me say this, but this goes beyond the war powers because now we got tariffs are involved. So the president has said that he's going to impose tariffs on countries that oppose the annexation of Greenland. And we just talked about this a few episodes ago. And this, once again, bad facts make bad law. There is a Supreme Court case right now on the president's power to tariff. The opinion has not yet been released.
You don't want to push the court
this is
to say
really
like
bad timing.
This is one of those like hypotheticals where the court is like, what about a ridiculous situation where you don't have war powers, but you use the force of tariffs in order to force whatever political annexation you want? This is exactly that type of thing. And we're all rolling our eyes at the hypothetical.
Exactly. Because remember, what was the whole theory behind the power to tariff? It was the president does not have the power to tariff independently. He has to get it from this incredibly broad statute that we thought was so broad it would cover everything. Well, we might have found the exception, right? So what is the theory in which you can tariff Great Britain for the purpose of encouraging Denmark to sell Greenland to you? Like, remember, when we talked about the tariffs case, you need an emergency. So the emergency was we have this massive trade deficit. It's hollowing out our industrial base. And so we need to protect that. That's the emergency. So therefore, we're going to put tariffs on people who are hollowing out our industrial base. Whether you agree with that or not doesn't matter. It's like a legitimate, you can make that argument. And that's all you really have to do is you have to just be able to make the argument. And then on the basis of that, the question was, can you use tariffs for that emergency, right? That was the gist of that legal brief. Here, there's no emergency. Right? Like there's no declared emergency. There's no even theoretical emergency. I mean, the best you can say is like it's strategically advantageous to control Greenland. But even that, we already control Greenland. I mean, that's like the unspoken thing. Like our agreements with Denmark basically allow us to do whatever we want with Greenland. So like trying to figure out like what is your basis for the tariffs is really hard to see. And the problem with that is doing that right now. Like if you're the Supreme Court, you're like, man, I don't know. Like imagine you're in the middle. Like imagine right now there's like a 4-4 split on tariffs with one person in the middle, right? Well, this is the kind of thing that person might think I was kind of leaning towards expansive tariff power. But then I see something like this and it makes me think maybe there do need to be limitations on the tariff power. So the Greenland thing is really interesting from a legal perspective, like putting aside sort of all the political, like whatever, just like whether it's war powers or tariffs, it implicates all of these things. And in a way, you could actually see limiting both of those powers for the president generally because of this specific issue.
Don't overstep.
I mean, and that's how you get
these situations
right?
all the time. All the time. Yes, we see this over and over again. So I don't know. Polar bears are cool, but I think we have other military options we could go with other than polar bears.
I mean, if Greenland wants to be part of the United States, great, But frankly, Denmark can pay the bills and we'll just build the military bases on it. Like, it works out well. And the whole reason for this is because, like everything else, the Russians and the Chinese, right? Basically, all of American foreign policy is about controlling the Russians and the Chinese. So why are we such good friends with Europe? Because we're afraid of Russia. Why are we such good friends with Japan and Taiwan? Because they're a buffer, and Australia, they're a buffer, and India, they're a buffer to the Chinese, right? And so Greenland has a strategic position in, the Russians want access to it, the Chinese want access to it. It also has a lot of resources. We want to be able to like mine and everything else. So that's why it's important. But whether you could take advantage of that without some sort of annexation is, whatever. Like I said, that's the policy. If you really support controlling Greenland, fine. But as far as like the legal question, you can't conquer it legally. And the tariff thing is problematic.
We are like fighting countries who are doing that.
It would be really bad. Not to go beyond the legal question, but just from a geopolitical perspective, the United States is a hegemon. It's the world's only hegemon, right? Like, we can basically operate anywhere in the world. But one of the reasons we can do that is because we have these great alliances with all these different people. So like there are places in Australia, for instance, where Australians can't go because it's a United States base, right? Same thing in England, right? Obviously, people are very familiar with all our bases across of Europe. All of these are designed to confront Russia or China, right? And if you blow up all those alliances, that is not great for the confronting Russia-China thing. So, I don't know, guys. I feel like maybe this is one we should just let go, but maybe it's just me.
Well, we're not in power. We're just doing a legal podcast.
The last thing I want to say, one more thing, just to continue to address controversial topics. Our last episode was on immunity, and just to make clear to people, because I feel like this wasn't clear. So, people have sent us a bunch of cases where federal agents didn't have immunity. Yeah. That's the whole point. Like, you don't have immunity because you're a federal agent. It's not like you're a federal agent, so therefore you're immune. You can do whatever. It's the process. There is a process you can go through. And if you show that your actions are necessary and proper in the pursuit of your employment as a federal agent, then you have absolute immunity. So the discussion is, what is the process that you go through?
It's not that you can't get prosecuted. It's if you are prosecuted, you can then claim immunity, kind of like insanity. If you have insanity, you don't just not get prosecuted. It's a defense that you're able to present to show that you are insane, but you have to go through the process to show that you are insane. And there's a finding that you are insane. Same with immunity.
Right. Exactly. So hopefully that clarified that. And look, if you think it's legal to invade Greenland, I'd love to see your arguments.
Polar bears. That's all I got. That's all I got.
Yeah. I may have some rare earth minerals too, but you know.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of reasons they want it, but you can't just take it. You can't just take. There's absolute value, but you can't just take things that you want.
It's not the 1800s anymore. Like back in the
1800s, we can't just take polar bears if we want them. We can't even take pandas if we don't want. We have to have like specific contracts and treaties and time limitations on a panda. Think about an entire country.
I still think we should keep the pandas. I think we should tell the Chinese, keeping the pandas, if they're in the United States.
All right, let's not start
US,
another war.
If they're born in the U.S., they're U.S. citizens, by God.
I don't know. You have to go back to that birthright citizenship. All comes full circle, y'all.
They're still loyal to the Chinese government, so therefore.
Oh my goodness. Okay. We better stop before we get really in some controversial topics. Just kidding, guys. We are here to talk about all the issues that you find interesting. Thanks for letting us know what you want to talk about. We've gone over today because we've talked about lots of things. We've talked about voir dire. We've talked about.
Somebody asked earlier if this was going to be a brief legal briefs.
I know. No, someone said this is going to be a brief legal brief because by minute 19, I looked at the timestamp. At minute 19, we were already pretty far into, our discussion, but don't you ever underestimate our ability to talk about lots of things. Brett, I'm not going to say if you have anything else to say because you've said a lot in a good way. I agree. This is fantastic. But I think we probably should do an entire episode on Greenland. If we end up invading, we should definitely do a whole episode.
Well, apparently there's some debate about how to pronounce it.
I don't think it's a debate. I think we all agree. If we invade Greenland,
we'll call it whatever we want.
Yeah, I don't think there's a debate. I think everyone disagrees with the way you're saying it, which I have no problem with you saying Greenland. I think it's just Greenland. But I'm going to get the last word here. Thank you, guys.
Do you call it an island? Or do you call it island?
Island, but those are different words. That's not the same. Greenland.
Why isn't it a land that's green?
I don't know what to tell you about it. That's just the way I grew up saying it.
I mean, Newfoundland.
Why is it not Arkansas?
Oh, well, that's a great question because it doesn't have that extra S in there, which, as we now know, because we've seen the order. It's Arkansas.
No.
Arkansas.
It's Arkansas. Which is also not phonetic. And then I didn't make fun of it, but identified was misspelled, so it was identified. But maybe that's the way they pronounce it. So maybe that one is just phonetic. You cannot be identified. Okay, we're not going to make fun of the order. Thank you, guys. So let us know what you think. We love having these conversations with you.
Sudetenland. I'm just saying, there are other places with land in their names, and
there are other places, but Swaziland is Swaziland, but Greenland has just been Greenland. I don't know what to tell you. It's the polar bears.
I guess Rhode Island is und.
Yeah.
And. Not Rhode Island.
I mean, look, it's not right or wrong. If you're in Texas, it's Houston. If you're on a street in Lower Manhattan, it's Houston. So it's not right or wrong. I'm just saying the way you say things. How do you say Kentucky?
Athens instead of Athens, and Versailles instead of
Versailles. And in Alabama, there's an Arab instead of Arab.
That's right.
And there's a Mobile instead of Mobile. So
you call it mobile, you're like.
So is it wrong or just matter of pronunciation?
And then you have like Louisville, which pronounced like Louisville.
I can never say Louisville. It's like so rolled up in my tongue. The same way.
It's Nolans.
Nolans.
I mean, it depends on who it is, right? Anyways, Greenland.
And then Appalachian.
That's a good point.
There's another one.
Caribbean and Caribbean.
This is true. we could go on forever.
We're just going on. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Guys, thank you. If you leave a 5-star review, you'll get to ask a question. And if we don't ramble on too much about our favorite mispronunciations or correct pronunciations of words, we'll have time to answer them. But perhaps not today, because we've covered a lot, from Greenland to Vadar to...
It's been a pronunciation lesson.
It's been great. We've been loving it. But leave a 5-star review if you like this. And if you don't like it, leave a 5-star review. We'll like you for doing it. And you can ask any question you want. Legal or not, we'll answer it. But until next time, I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. So it's not just some old guy in a truck with his 14-year-old daughter. Like, you might think, wow, that's a bit rash there, Mr. Spencer. No, you see, Brett Fossler had been charged with more than...
That was my name.
Oh.
You just keep going.
Brett, I did call him Brett. Everyone named Brett is a little bit of...
I'm going live.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. So good to see you. I feel so much better. I feel like myself. Which is great.
You sound like yourself for the first time in weeks.
It took a while.
Basically, since I
moved.
TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
What? This is the mindset. Free. This is the mantra. Free. This is the mindset.
With movies like Joe Dirt, Pixels, and 50 First Dates. This is awesome. And TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Ghosts. Pluto TV is always free.
Huzzah!
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
You're welcome.